Hello, this is Wizard from the Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5 PC mining forums. I decided to make a few video tutorials and helping members do the semi-more complex things that I do. Today's video tutorial will be about spawning new enemies in anywhere in the game that you want, but not replacing any enemies. You're actually adding brand new enemies to the spawn files. So, to get this started, the first thing I want to know is all the tools I'll be mentioning and using will be in a pack. You can download in the description box, along with all the enemy ID lists and stuff that I use. To get started, I have to go to Resident Evil 4 folder and make sure that you can actually see the extensions on the files. If you cannot, in Windows 7, go to Organize, Folders and Search Options, View. Make sure that Hide Extensions for known file types is not checkmarked. If it's not, and just click OK. Okay, now that you can actually see the extensions, if you cannot, make sure the extension on the file etc is .gca and it's not .dat. If it is .dat, change it to .gca. Once you have that done, boot up the GCA tool. Click File, Extract File, select .etc, OK. Once that's done, go to your etc folder. To avoid issues later, now that you're into etc folder, select all files by using Control A on the keyboard. Right click any file, go to Properties, uncheckmark Read Only, click Apply. Make sure you have Apply Changes to selected items in subfolders and files, checkmarked. Click OK. Now that that's done, we want to click and drag EM Leon 00 to ESL into a hex editor, which we will be using HXD. I'm going to very quickly go over what is what in an enemy spawn line. Another thing I should mention before I do this is that if you just installed XHD, or if you have your settings differently, for Resident Evil 4 enemy spawn files, you're going to want to make sure bits per row up here is 32 and not anything else, because at 32 it conveniently puts an entire enemy line in one line here, so it's very easy and nice and clean to work with. So make sure it's 32. I'm then going to go over what's what in the spawn file. The very first bit here is 00, or it can be 01. 00 means that the enemy has to be spawned by a trigger in game. 01 means that it spawns instantly as soon as the player enters the stage. So that's what you're going to want to use for making new enemies to simplify things. The next thing is enemy ID. You can, again, in the description box will be a link to this page here to find all the enemy IDs for the game. The next 2 bits here is for different. No, I'm sorry. The next bit here is for like how the enemy will look. Different variants for like villagers or island enemies. You know, if they have a helmet, or if they have like a vest on or jacket, that kind of thing. The next bit here is enemy sight range. How far can the enemies see you before they notice you, basically. Pretty straightforward. The next 2 bits is enemy weapon ID. What weapon will they have? Next, the next 2 bits here is enemy health. The first health value is what the actual health value is, and then the one after it multiplies the one before it. So, for a quick example to know of how much health an enemy actually has, you want to go to Windows Calculator. Make sure it has the view as programmer, and in Hex tab, type in F4 because it's the actual value. So F4. Then click the decimal, and it will show you that the enemy has 244 hit points. But then the one after it will multiply it. So you want to multiply it by 1. Math fail. Want to multiply it by 2. There you go. 488. And just multiply 1 time. And so the enemy actually has 488 hit points. Okay, so going forward, the next bit after that is always 00. So you always want to leave that alone. The next bit after that is the enemy angle the enemy will be facing when it spawns. You know, if it will spawn north, east, south, or west. You can mess with. I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head which value is for what, but if you mess around with these, it's pretty simple. The next 12 bits here is where the enemy will spawn, which is obviously very important. We'll get to this shortly. The next 2 bits is always 0, 0, so leave these alone. The next 2 bits is what room ID will the enemy spawn. A thing to note here is that in the enemy spawn file, it's actually put in backwards. So for example, for this enemy here, it's 0001. What that actually is R100. It's just backwards. So you want to make sure you keep that in mind. Alright, now to start with a basis, to make things a lot easier, you want to copy an entire line, copy it, but you do not want to paste it right under the one you copied it from. I'll show you why. Now, I just pasted it under one I copied it from. You shouldn't think there's any problems with this, but there actually is quite a major flaw. Because a lot of the enemies underneath the one are 0, 0, which means they're triggered by something in game. Now, if you move it all down one, it's going to completely mess up the game when it tries to spawn enemies, because when the game tries to spawn an enemy, it's looking for an enemy that's in the exact line of the file. Now you push them all down one, it's going to goof it all up, so you do not want to do that. So I'm going to undo that in the file. I'm going to get rid of it. What you want to do is copy an entire line, go to the bottom of the spawn file, and now you want to paste it. Now it's in its own space, it's not messing with anything, and everything's good. And make sure the very first thing you want to do is the first bit is 0, 1, so an enemy will spawn instantly. I'm going to jump on down to the enemy spawn coordinations to speed things up. In game, you basically stand anywhere you want. You want the enemy to spawn, and then you will boot up Cheat Engine using the script that will be given you below. That this script and Spawn.exe are made by Xayah, so all credits go to him for making these great tools that help make enemies a lot easier. We're going to want to pick Game the Player Enemy Coordinations from the process list. You do want to keep the list, so click yes. Now in game, go anywhere you want the enemy to spawn. Alright, I want the enemy to spawn here for tutorial sake. Now, pause the game for exact coordination. Go to Cheat Engine, and thanks to Xayah's script, it translates Leon's coordinations, or any character's coordinations, into what enemies use for spawn coordinations. So, you want once you get your character you want to be, you want to double click on value, copy this entire line, go back to the hex editor, select the 12 bits of which are the enemy spawn coordinations, paste over it, save, and now we're going to have to restart the level here so the changes actually take effect. Unfortunately, starting by checkpoint does not work. As you can see, it worked. Wow, my aim's really off today. Okay. That's about it for out of spawn enemies. A few things I should know before I end this tutorial is there is unfortunately a limit of how many enemies you can put in a single enemy spawn file. It's not too strict, but there is a limit if you go too crazy. Basically, a way to know what that is exactly, I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that once the file size hits 13.2 kilobytes, then anything past those enemy spawn entries, the game will simply not read it, like it isn't even there. So keep an eye on that. That's about it. Using this new exe and Cheat Engine script, you can use Assignment Ada, Separate Ways, Mercenaries, Story Mode, anywhere, stand where you want to go. Get your coordinations, make some new enemies, and I hope to see more mods do this. Thanks for watching, hope this was helpful, and I will see you later.